Let me ask you a question, if you will. Are you happy with your family communication, the way you and your family communicate? Are you satisfied with that? Okay. Well, somebody said yes, but he didn't say anything. And if you're not, I'm glad that you allow me just to give for a few minutes just to share with you what we can do to maybe change that. And if you are satisfied, then there's always something we can do to enhance that we're doing. Would you agree with me? Now, I've got 3 children. My youngest is 13, my daughter's 16, and my son is 28. And so in this particular conversation, we're going to deal with family communication as it directs with your children. So I'll be talking about what communication is, how that affects our children, and how we should make communication appeal to them. I'll talk about the benefits of it, and then I'll challenge y'all if you don't mind. So first and foremost, the question you might ask me was, what is communication? Communication is the transmittal of information between 2 or more individuals. So it takes at least 2 people to really say that we have some communication going. And now, within the scope of that communication, something that we have to always remember that I think we forget when we're communicating is that our motivation needs to be love. Eric Mazel, who wrote Communication Tips for Successful Families, says that love is the lubricant that sustains a family in the midst of communication. Now, there are a couple of steps that you have to do if you're really going to be a good communicator. And I've got somebody I want to just use as my visual aid. Now, active listening is what your goal should be. Now, an active listener is a person who's, for example, don't really have their back to you when you're talking to them. An active listener is going to be looking at you face to face, eye to eye, right? So if I'm an active listener, I'm focused on what you're doing. Also, an active listener is not being distracted. They're not busy watching television while I'm trying to talk to them, or they're not busy reading a book, perhaps. When I'm talking to them, they have given me all of their attention. And sometimes we don't do that. But we say we're listening, but we're not really focused. Another thing that we need to do if we're going to be active listening is the content. Thank you so much. The content of what the person is saying we need to be aware of, not only of their verbal communication, but of how they're physically moving around, or their arms folded. How does their facial features look? Are they demonstrating enough that we're sad, that they're sad, or maybe they're not sad, but maybe, are they happy? Are they irritated, and have we just not noticed that? And when it comes to our children, sometimes we forget that children don't know how to communicate. Patricia Tanner Nelson says that children learn from their parents, that the parents are the role models who teach children how to communicate. So we need to remember first and foremost that if we're going to teach our children to communicate, that we have to listen. We have to listen to what they have to say. And in my case, I have 3 different children, 13, 16, and 18. So, of course, when they were all around the same age, 2, 5, 9, and 10, they were 3 different individuals who perhaps communicated differently. So I've got to approach each child differently based on how they communicate. I can't talk to the 1-2 like they're 9. I can't talk to the 1-9 like they're 2. I've got to listen at how they communicate, how they understand. And then I've got to take those active skills that we talked about earlier, the focusing in on the individual. And I've got to teach them not to be talking to me and they're in the next room. You know how they do. Mama or dad is talking in the next room. Or they're watching TV trying to hold a conversation with you. Or they're on the phone. But I've got to teach them that if you're going to communicate with somebody, that to give that person your full and undivided attention. Do you agree? All right. So now you know what else? Our minor children and our adult children, who I really want to focus on, they're not the same. But sometimes we forget that as parents. Sometimes we want to talk to our grown children just like they're children. But adults need to be talked to like they are adults. Chuck Rich says that there are 10 steps you can take that will change the way you and your adult child communicate. The first step is that you have to remember you're talking to an adult. And you want to communicate with this adult like you would any other adult. And sometimes that's difficult because that's your baby. But your baby deserves the same respect that any other adult you would give any adult. And then mom, dad, we need to remember that their choices, though we don't agree with them, they're their choices. And because they're adults, we have to respect their choices, and we have to give them respect. We have to allow them to make their mistakes, because that's how they grow. That's how we grow. Do we agree? So now, if we don't do that, we're going to damage the communication. And now, my son lives in Houston. The longest, when it's 28, that's 250 miles away. Now, the average distance that grown children normally live away from their family is about 100 miles. But now, that distance can be broadened millions of miles if we're not communicating. They could be right around the corner, but if we're not communicating, they might as well be on the other side of the world. And we may say, I know I said in the past, he needs to call me. But you know what? If you're the one who's concerned about communication, then you have to take the responsibility to make sure that the communication takes place. You have to be the role model. So as I close, what I would suggest that you do is that you designate one day a week, or one day a month, or one day every 2 weeks that you specifically say, okay, like in my son's case, he doesn't work in the afternoons. I'm going to call him every Friday at 7 o'clock. And this is going to be our time. And I'm not going to dictate what we talk about, but I'm going to let him know that whatever he wants to talk about is fine with me. I'm not going to, and I'm the kind of person, I like to give solutions. No matter what the problem is, or let me give you an answer. But sometimes they just want you to listen. So, in hindsight, if the communication is going to be successful with our children, we need to remember who they are as individuals. And that's a benefit, that's a plus to them, because they'll recognize mom and dad as listening. Then we need to give them the respect they deserve, and as the respect they really deserve as adults, and appreciate them for who they are. Thank you so much for your time.